Thank you. Good morning, Picasso. As Mrs. Bolton's just said, I used to be the head teacher here before, and I probably know some of your parents and possibly some of your grandparents as well. That's how old I am. I'm now retired and I only work a little bit, so it's quite a nice situation to be in. I've come in today to talk to you, and you're probably wondering why I'm here. And you'll see the title on the board. Jansa is a little village in West Africa, in a country called Ghana. There's Ghana. It's not a very good picture, but this is the Atlantic Ocean here, and the Atlantic Ocean goes that way as well towards America. So it's a little bit of Africa that sticks out on the left-hand side. And the area where Jansa is this area here, which is called the Ashanti region. And there are a number of very poor villages there. And the reason I'm coming here to talk to you about this village is twofold. First of all, I'm coming with a very belated thanks to the school, because about 10 years ago, the school, when I was the head teacher, raised some money for another village called Bima. Now, Bima was very similar to Jansa in that it was a really poor country in a very poor state of repair. And the village itself was about 2,000 people. It's now expanded to 5,000 people. And the reason that is because a lot of work was done on the sanitation. So providing them with water and toilet facilities. Now, the difference it made is quite incredible. It used to be that 1 in 5 children died before the age of 5. So if there's 100 people in here, 20 of you wouldn't be here if you lived in an African village with poor sanitation. Following the work that was done in Bima 10 years ago, the village has improved to such an extent now that not one single child has died since 2011. So that is quite an incredible achievement. And that was down to the work that was done and that was funded by some of the fundraising from this school. If you look at the pictures here, they're not very clear, so I'll just tell you what they're actually showing. First of all, water used to be obtained by walking 3 or 4 kilometres to a dirty pond that was used by animals as well, collecting water and carrying it back to the village. Installing a borehole means that the village can have clean water and they can have their own water supply that doesn't require them going miles and miles. Secondly, installation of toilets. Toilets used to be 1 block like that for a village, and simply they're called slat toilets, and it's simply a hole in the ground with a bench over the top of it. And you can imagine what that's like in Africa with the flies and the smell and the disease. So that is a really serious problem for them. They don't have proper toilet facilities. Third one, which is something that was done in Bima, was to build a new school for them, because education is really important and is really valued in Africa. And before, that was Golborne High School on the left there, a roof with a tin roof. And afterwards, they've got a nice brick-built building and all modern facilities. Modern facilities for Africa, not what you would be used to. Okay, miss? So, this is just a summary of where Bima is now compared to where it was in 2010-11. The population has doubled. All the families now have brick-built houses. It's the largest vegetable producer in Ghana. And they grow carrots basically. So it might not sound very exciting to you when you go to the supermarket and look at all the vegetables, but they grow carrots. Most people in Africa survive on a root crop, a bit like potatoes. It's called cassava. And one of the other things that the project did was to teach them how to process the cassava so that it could be used all year round. Because if it's kept as it is when it's dug out of the ground, it will rot within 2 or 3 weeks. So conserving that and making it available in the future was really valuable. These are the sort of things that they grow. Carrots is their speciality. You see peppers there, you can see corn on the cob. There's no cassava there, but it's like a giant potato. If you think of a sweet potato, it's a little bit like that. Okay, miss? Now, this is really important, and those people on the front row might be able to see this. This is actually a plaque that is in the village now, thanking people who raised the funds for them. Now, the man who I am working with at the moment, he works for the Rotary Club, so that's why it's got that wheel at the top. But the most important thing on here is this here, where it says Golborne High School. Because of all the schools that helped to raise money for this project, Golborne raised the most money. They raised £5,000, which is an awful lot of money. And remember, that was in 2010, 10 years ago. So that was a great effort. Your name is there in this little village in the middle of Africa. Okay, miss? So, what's happening next and why am I here? I'm going to talk about Genser, which is another village very much in the same region. It's a smaller village, but the idea is that the club is trying to develop more villages so that they can spread the good word. So basically, people can learn from looking at Beamer, but they also sometimes need some direct help. So Genser at the moment has only got 540 people in it, so it's a lot smaller. 45 families and one borehole and one 4-position slat toilet. So you imagine that, 500 people using one toilet permanently. And they have got a borehole, but it's not a mechanical one, it's a manual one. So they have to, it's a bit like a well, if you like. Okay, miss? So these are some pictures, that's what the village looks like, and you can see it's quite remote. Ashanti is a very sort of rich sort of green region, but the people there are very poor, and they live in these sort of, some of them are brick built, but some of them are just put together very loosely. Okay, there's the toilet, so that's 504 people using that, 45 families. Not ideal, is it? Probably most of you have got at least one toilet in your house, you've probably got 2 or 3, and that's the sort of thing that we expect, not over there. Okay, miss? Okay, there's a nice picture of the inside of the toilet. That's what it looks like at the moment. And the main concern is that there's a lot of flies, there's a lot of smell, and there's consequently quite a lot of disease. So if you can make the toilet facilities remotely sanitary, then you reduce the amount of disease. And if you have a clean water supply to go along with that, then you can more or less reduce all these deaths of infants. So remember what I said to you before, 1 in 5 children would die before the age of 5. And you can reduce that to 0 just by giving them basic sanitation. Okay, miss? This is a picture of somebody doing basket weaving, because part of the project as well is to teach them how to manage their own enterprises. So teach them about farming procedures, hence the carrots, so they diversify their farming, but also to teach them to become independent in terms of having something they can trade. And they've got the facilities to make these baskets. So that's one of the industries that they've moved into. So this is what they need. They've got a short list of demands. Mechanised borehole, so they can get the water better. Household latrines and hygiene training. So just basically understanding why there's disease and the importance of washing your hands. We all know all about that. We're sitting here with masks on, we're washing our hands all the time. We know how important that is. Agricultural training, as I've mentioned. A food processing centre, that's for the cassava, so they can actually use the crops that they grow all year round. Infant food supplements, something we take for granted. And then these things at the bottom are to do with finance. So rather than just giving them money, they try to set them up so that they become independent and can manage money themselves. Laptops and 1 desktop for the school. So that is really advanced for Africa. 1 computer and then some laptops, and that will be a great way forward for them. And the last one might be something they can have, but because it's a very small town, there may not be enough children to justify a kindergarten. Okay, miss? This is a bit boring, it's a spreadsheet, but what it's basically saying is that they've got high priority, which is this total here, and then they've got like a wish list, if you like, which is much more expensive. Now the wish list includes things like the kindergarten, the laptops and the credit schemes. So that's the icing on the cake, if you like. The basics, which are, if you look down the other column there, the borehole, the toilets and the infant food supplements, that's about reducing the infant mortality. That is the key to making the village successful. So, this is where they get the money from. A lot of the clubs, these are the Rotary Clubs, raise money for this because this is their charity. They've done a number of villages up in Africa. Special events and donations from other clubs like schools, and schools tend to be a good source of funding because children who align themselves with this sort of charity are very good at raising funds. And we came to the school council 10 years ago and they decided to adopt that as a charity. So I'm going to come and see your school council at some point to see if they'll help this project again. Now, the difference it can make, if you Beamer Village now is one of the most popular villages in the Ashanti region, simply because the chief now insists that anybody who comes into his village must have a brick-built house and they must build themselves a toilet and they must take part in his employment schemes. And because of that, it's become a sought-after place to live. And the idea is that if they can develop this in a few other small villages, then the country and the region will become successful. So, delays up to now. The pandemic has delayed everything. It may well delay this project again because it involves people travelling to West Africa, and that's difficult. Going to Africa is difficult anyway, I know from personal experience, in terms of actually just getting there, but going during a pandemic is virtually impossible. The borehole has been started and then some grants have been obtained from the government. So this project is well on its way. They're just looking to complete the fundraising now. Okay, miss? And any help will be gratefully received. And there's a nice picture coming up of some people from Beamer Village.